Hello everyone, it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm here with Neat Tangled and I'm going to be sharing with you a card featuring one of my favorite Neat Tangled Christmas stamp sets, as well as the Tim Holtz Distress Crayons. The Distress Crayons are a fairly new product to the Distress line, so I'll go ahead and walk you through some of the tips and tricks that I have for using them. But first, let's go ahead and die cut this beautiful new tag die from Neat Tangled from some watercolor paper. This is Canson XL watercolor paper. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop out all the negative pieces of this tag die. I'll have this tag die linked below in the video description and also over at the blog, so be sure to head on over there to check that out. Link is in the video description. Now I'm also going to take my Tim Holtz craft pick and pop out the negative portions of this tag die. If you have any trouble die cutting the tag die, maybe try a shim underneath. I didn't have any trouble, but you might, because this tag die is solid, so depending on how your cutting plates are, you may end up wanting to have that shim underneath. Alright, so once I've taken all the negative pieces out and I'm mounting my little tag die into my Misty stamping tool, and I'm bringing in this cute little tree and house scene from Neat Tangled's Winter Wishes stamp set. This is one of my absolute favorite winter Christmassy themed stamp sets from Neat Tangled. I love this adorable little scene. So I'm going to go ahead and prep the surface of my tag using an EK Success powder tool. And this is because I want to do heat embossing and I want to make sure I don't have any static cling on the paper. Now for my embossing ink, I'm going to be using the Simon Says Stamp Clear ink. This is by far my absolute favorite clear ink for heat embossing. And I know I say that all the time, but it's really true. I just love how it grabs onto the embossing powder so well. This embossing ink is really, really juicy. And I love that it gets every detail of my stamping. It's really, really perfect for everything. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some Ranger white embossing powder. This is the super fine white embossing powder. I'm just going to put that on top of my heat embossed images. And I'll go ahead and heat set that with my heat gun. This is a heat gun from Wagner. This is my favorite heat gun to use. I've had others in the past and I have never been as happy with any of them as I am with my Wagner heat gun. I've been using it for almost a year now and I love it. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and start bringing in my Distress Crayons to create my little background here. We're going to be doing an Emboss Resist because the embossing powder that we've applied down for the stamping is going to resist the Distress Crayons. Now I'm starting off by applying the yellow, as you can see here, and I added a light blue and now I'm adding a dark blue, and I'm just gradually getting darker as I go up across the tag here. And the reason I added that yellow as the first layer is because I wanted to have a glow around the houses, almost as if there was light in the distance glowing behind the houses. And I thought this would be a great way to go ahead and achieve that by using these Distress Crayons. Now I'm blending them all together here, really kind of allowing the colors to mix. This is going to be my base coat, so I want to make sure that I get a good blending across this. Now because this is our base coat, this is going to stain the paper a little bit more. That's the best way I can describe it. But basically, it's going to soak into the paper most of all. And these other layers that we're consequently putting on top aren't going to soak in as much because they're going to end up kind of sitting more on top of the color we've already put down. Now, you did see me rubbing off the Distress Crayon from the heat embossed images that we have here. That yellow was sitting on top. And that's because I don't want the color that's sitting on top of the embossed images to blend into the other colors, because that's not sitting on the paper, so it's not going to become permanent like these other colors are. And that's one of the cool features about the Distress Crayons, is that they become permanent when you apply water to them. So as you can see here, I'm applying color, adding the water on top, but then I'm heat setting in between each layer, and I'm not showing that part, but I am doing that. Before I add in another color, I always heat set it. And that's because I don't want the colors to blend together so much as I want them to just create an ombre of color. So I'm now bringing in my third layer. This is going to be the third layer of all these colors. And I'm starting off with the blue this time because in this particular layer, I want the yellow to be the final color that I add onto this. So I'll bring in some more of that dark blue. This is the Chipped Sapphire. And I do have all the colors, as you can see, listed on the side of the screen, so you can kind of get an idea of what colors I'm using here. And I really just love how these colors really work together and really kind of create this really cool effect. They're a very different type of medium than all the other Distress products, but I really love how you can get some really cool effects with these and also create some really fun and bright backgrounds. Now here I'm bringing in that yellow and I'm just kind of blending that out into the blue, just allowing that to really add that really cool halo around the houses. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and bring in my Tombow Mono sand eraser. And this is because the coloring that I added to the background kind of wasn't so even along the bottom portion of this panel. But that's easy enough to fix with this Tombow Mono sand eraser. And that's because this will actually rub off all the ink that is on top of this paper here. So what I'm doing is I'm just rubbing that across the areas where I have some little smudges of color, and that just really lifts it off really nicely, and you can't even tell it was there. Here's a close-up look of that sand eraser. I'll have that linked below in the video description. And I did end up buffing off the houses as well, so they're a nice bright white. Now here I'm bringing in the sentiment from the Winter Wishes stamp set from Neat Tangled, again the same one that the houses were part of. And I'm going to go ahead and ink this up with some Simon Says Stamp clear ink and stamp it down onto a dark purple cardstock. I wanted to make sure that this color, which was kind of very close to the color that we used in the sky, a mixture of the chipped sapphire and the seedless preserves, I wanted that color to be down towards the bottom so that way it kind of ties everything in. And I just heat embossed the sentiment in some Ranger's superfine white embossing powder. Again, the same stuff that we used on the trees and the houses. Now I cut this down to a little strip, and I'm turning it into a banner by cutting a little V end on each side of this paper strip. And all I do is I cut a slit up the middle and then meet it on each side, and that creates the perfect V shape. I'll add some foam tape to the back side, just pop it up off the bottom portion of my panel, and that creates a really cute little sentiment there along the bottom portion of the card. Okay, so now I need a card base, and I want the card base to kind of not distract too much from the rest of my card design. So I decided I wanted to go ahead and heat emboss this wood grain pattern, which is from a Hero Arts background stamp. I'm going to heat emboss this in some clear embossing powder. And this is just going to give my card a little bit of texture to the actual card base itself, but it's not going to distract from the rest of the card design. It's just going to kind of help fill in the little empty space of the white area and also kind of give a nice texture to the background and add some interest. So I just used the Simon Says Stamp clear embossing powder. This is this fine detail embossing powder. I really love this stuff. And again, that Simon Says Stamp clear ink works perfectly. Alright, so now I need to pop this little panel off of our card base. So I'm taking some foam tape. This is that 3M foam tape, the big giant roll. And I'm cutting it down into little strips. Now the reason I'm putting it on the sides of this little tag here is because I'm going to be cutting off the top and bottom portion of the tag so that way it fits perfectly onto our A2 sized card. But I need something on the sides to help support everything because the foam adhesive is only in the center area. I wasn't going to try to put it around those little lattice designs. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the sides to help give my little tag some support. And now I'm going to bring in some snowflakes because I felt that the card needed to have the snowflakes kind of tying in the rest of the scene here. So I'm taking these stitched flakes from Simon Says Stamp. I'm just cutting them off. And I'm doing this because this was kind of an afterthought. I was like, oh, you know what? I would really love to have some snowflakes around here. But I'd already attached down the tag and I was like, oh, nuts. So my workaround was to just go ahead and trim off the ends of each snowflake where I was going to have it tucked around the little tag here. And that just worked perfectly enough. And if I had thought about it before, I would have applied these snowflakes down first without having to cut them and then put the tag on top. So it worked either way. So I used some liquid adhesive to attach those down, and now I'm taking some Nouveau crystal drops and I'm going to create some snowflakes in the background, some little round dots. Now the best way to use these Nouveau drops, these are a fairly new product, and the best way to get a nice dome, perfect little snowflake drop here is to create the drops by not putting the nozzle of the bottle onto the paper. So basically you're going to make sure that the nozzle stays above the paper and you're literally going to drop these crystal drops onto the paper. So it's going to kind of create that perfect little half pearl effect, and it's going to have that nice little bit of dimension, but it's going to not get so flat because if you put the nozzle down onto the paper, it does have a tendency to get a little flatter than if you had, again, like I said, kept the nozzle up above the paper. So here you can see that great dimension of those crystal drops. I really, really love using these. Okay, so I hope this has given you a good look at how to use your Tim Holtz Distress Crayons to create some really gorgeous and beautiful night sky backgrounds, and also some inspiration for using this really cute and adorable Winter Wishes stamp set from Neat Tangled. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and head on over to the blog to get more information on this card, including still pictures and products used. And if you enjoyed, here's another video you might like featuring Neat Tangled products. Please give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you can connect with us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, as well as our blog. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.